Welcome to the Heal Deal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leona Allen, and I'm here to help you achieve more freedom in your health and your life. I'm the founder of Freedom Health Systems, and I've been a licensed chiropractor and wellness coach for over 2 decades. I've helped men, women, and children transform their lives by removing the physical, chemical, and emotional barriers to natural healing. Every week, I'll be taking you on a journey where you will discover the real truth behind what it takes to heal your mind, body, and soul. Allow me to be your guide as you travel this road to renewed health and a new life. It's time to make a deal with yourself to heal yourself. Please keep in mind that this podcast is for educational purposes only and not to be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis or treatment. With that said, let's begin. Hello. Welcome to the Heal Deal podcast. And as usual, I'm going to say it. I have another amazing episode today with an amazing guest, because that's all I accept around here is amazing people with amazing topics. So I have Dr. Bruce Cooper with me today. I'm going to introduce him, and then we're going to get right into some really important information to help you achieve more freedom in your health and your life. So Dr. Bruce Cooper has over 24 years of experience in the health, wellness, and fitness industry. Bruce has a Bachelor of Science in Human Biology, is an ND certified nutritionist, and a personal trainer. For 8 years, Bruce worked as a regional nutrition program coordinator for a large health and wellness organization. There, his contributions helped shape the path of how the organization defined their nutrition and wellness philosophy. He educated hundreds of fitness professionals in physiology, biochemistry, and nutrition. He sounds so smart, doesn't he? He also has been featured on the local Fox network affiliate and speaking engagements with Fortune 500 companies. So I am talking to a celebrity, y'all. Dr. Bruce's passion is to help individuals achieve their health and wellness goals. He has assisted many clients to achieve goals of weight management, body composition, hormone balance, and blood sugar regulation. A lot in common there. His philosophy is nothing trumps one's health. You may hear him say, nobody looks good in a pine box. I 100% agree with that. This means no matter how good you look, if you don't have your health, then you won't be able to enjoy those other things to the fullest. Above everything else, Bruce is a devoted husband to his beautiful wife, Heidi, and father to his son. He claims the birth of his son is the proudest moment of his life, and he loves to spend time with his family, enjoying the blessing. And he loves to cook. He and his wife are both foodies and enjoy time in the kitchen. He is a sci-fi nerd. All right, cool nerds in the house at heart, and enjoys superhero sci-fi movies with his son. He also enjoys keeping his mind engaged and continues to educate himself through books, blogs, or books, right? And
Right.
podcasts. So there we go. This is like a human moment I'm having right now, but I'm just honored to have you here, and we're going to share things natural, share things health, and really get to the heal deal. So I'm excited to have you, and thank you for accepting my invitation to be on this podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. And like I've said to you before, I love the name The Heal Deal. It's perfect.
Yeah, so we're going to get really real and get to the truth about health and everything that people really need to know, because you know that we're in a very sick world and people need help. And a lot of that, the problem is we're just not educated and we're not really understanding what health is anymore. So we're going to get into that in just a moment, because I know you're the person to really address these things. But before we do that, I want the audience to know about you. You're very intelligent. You've done a lot in your life, but a little bit about how you got here and why you do what you do.
So it's a long story. I'll try to cut it shorter for you. Um, it started when I was 19 years old when I first did blood work and went into the doctor, and they said, your cholesterol is high, it's off, and you're too young for that, so you need to change your eating habits. And I've listened to some of the things you've said on your podcast, and it sounds just like that. They told me you can't eat any fats. Now, this was the late 80s, early 90s. Can't eat any fats. No bacon, butter's bad. Get away from all of that stuff. And so when they tell you that, you look at, labels and you say, well, rice has, no fat. Potatoes really have no fat. All these pastas and breads and all these highly processed foods, they're no fats. And you probably remember back in the day they had what were they called? The snack wells.
Oh yeah.
All of these, sweets that had all the fat removed, and so that's what I feasted on. And looking back, um, I was given all of the wrong information with that. And besides, have you ever had fat-free sour cream? It really just doesn't taste good. And it's plastic food. It's all made in a lab. There really are no real whole food ingredients in any of those things. And
Yeah.
so as I progressed through my 20s, they said, yeah, it's getting worse. My triglycerides were through the roof. My HDLs were bottomed out. My LDLs were really high. Total cholesterol was really high, and they basically said, "Yeah, we're going to have to put you on a statin medication." Now, way back then, I was more allopathically minded, more traditional medicine mind. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" They said, "Yeah, you're going to die of a heart attack, in your 30s if you don't get on a statin." I was like, "Well, got to do that." I got a statin medication, and it was my late mid to late 20s, and then I wasn't feeling good after that. Still trying to make the dietary changes they told me to, as best as I could, and just nothing was really working. And then into my 30s, I mean, now I'm on a proton pump. So now I'm first a statin, now I'm on a proton pump inhibitor. Then they're starting to talk to me about, my glucose is out of whack, things are not right, and I met my wife in my mid 30s, and she was more on this other side of the witchcraftery, you're the odd one out because you don't want to follow the traditional medicine. This is where I first learned about homeopathy. And I had bad seasonal allergies. Like every fall when the season changed, it got really, really bad to the point where I got sick. And it happened again in the spring. And I'm here in Texas, so it's hot, and then it gets cold, and then it gets hot again, and then it gets cold again, and then you may have a mild winter. And in the spring, it does the same thing. So it never makes up its mind. And so the seasonal allergies would come, they would go, they would come, and it was really bad. And I was taking all of what are the Claritins and Zyrtex and Allegras and all that other stuff, and nothing was helping. I had testing done, none of it was working. And so I remember I was working as a personal trainer, and somebody new, one of the new personal trainers came in, and I had this sinus infection. And I had sinus infection, went on a round of antibiotics, didn't clear it up, still had the sinus infection. Doctor gave me another round of antibiotics, didn't clear it up, still had the sinus infection, went on a third round of antibiotics, didn't clear it up. And I was talking to one of the trainers, and she was wearing like a crystal around her neck. And she goes, you need to go see my naturopath. And I went, oh, I don't know. And I went down, it went down, and Heidi worked at the same place, and told her, and she got so excited. She was like, I'm booking the appointment. You're going. And I went to the appointment, and they did all this biofeedback, and he came out with I don't know if you remember the old brake fluid transmission fluid bottles that was kind of a funnel on top and then it went straight down and he handed me this thing and he said, you need to drink this every day and take these, give me a couple of supplements and take these. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try it because it ain't going to hurt, right? I've been suffering. Went home and within 3 days, I was feeling so much better. The sinus infection was gone and things were better. So I look at this bottle he gave me and it says bentonite clay on it. I was like, oh, so I did some research and there were some other things that were in there. And that really started to turn the tide for me because I was like, medicine, there's a place for medicine in this world, the new allopathic medicine, but it wasn't fixing me. And so I started on my own research journey. And then where I was working, it was at Lifetime Fitness at the time. They started to do a lot of lab testing. And that really got my attention because my background is in human biology. And so all of the biochemistry was fascinating to me, much more interesting to me personally than, putting people on a hamster wheel and having them run for an hour or handing them, a piece of lead and having them, exercise that way. And then I found out, wow, you can really look into somebody's body and really figure out what's going on a more holistic level than you can. And then I also started learning how to read those labs and tie different markers together that you just weren't hearing about in traditional medicine. So for me, I was having all these problems. And so I said, you know what? I am not taking the statin anymore. I am not taking the Nexium anymore. Um, and I'm going to see what I can do going down a different path. And so the statin I was on was supposed to raise my HDLs and lower my LDLs and triglycerides, and it wasn't working. My HDLs were like 20 something, and maybe they went up to like 2 points. And we know for a male we got to get over 40, maybe even 50. And so it wasn't even helping. I was doing all I changed my workouts and did some more heavy lifting, backed away from the cardio a little bit, changed my nutrition drastically. And so the changes I made were lowering the starchy carbohydrates down, increasing non-starchy vegetables, which are also carbohydrates. So we don't want to demonize that, but getting that fiber in, having a good ample amount of protein and getting more healthy fats, like tons of them, like 40, 50, upwards to even 60% of my diet came from healthy fats at the time. And 6 months later, I ran my blood work and my triglycerides, which if I told you the number, it would scare you. It was so high. When they put me on the statins, I was, I think, in the 300s. When I came off of it, I went up into the thousands.
Wow.
And yeah, my doctor freaked out and said, you got to get back on the statin. I said, I'm not going to do a statin. She goes, you need a statin. I go, I'm not going to do a statin. She goes, you're going to die if you're not on statin. I said, you're fired. Went and found another doctor that was a little more like-minded, which was funny because every time I would go into his office, he'd ask me because he has to check the box. And then we would laugh because he knew there was no way I was going to go back on. So when I came off of the statin medication and changed I call it my three-legged stool. So this is where I work with all my clients. I changed my nutrition, I modified my activity, and I made lifestyle modifications. So between nutrition, activity, and lifestyle is how I work with all my clients, and that's what I work with on myself. And the medical range for triglycerides was 150. And when I got my blood work back, making those changes, no medications, smart supplementations is part of that. My number was 151. It was lower than when I was on the statin medications, sitting between three something and seven something. Okay. My cholesterol, which was still a little bit high, Not in the medical ranges, but there's data showing that those functional ranges that I use now today, that's where I was. And it was good. And you need cholesterol. A lot of people don't know that. Cholesterol is in every one of our cells in our body. It's part of the cell membrane. It holds the cell together. It's what's on your skin to help make vitamin D. It's the precursor to all of your hormones. We need it.
Exactly.
So artificially trying to lower it, my body, I think, believe, fought against that. And my HDLs were 42, where they'd been in the low 20s on the medication that was supposed to raise them. So when I look at the data of my study, n equals one, and because I'm very much, I like to read studies and the background and what's going on behind it. But my n equals one study lowered my triglycerides, raised my HDLs, which is what they were trying to do on a medication that was unable to do it. So that's really my story. I came off of all the acid reflux I was having. They put me on the proton pump inhibitor. What I found out is a lot of times what we're eating, by lowering that acid, makes you feel good initially, but over time, you're stopping the acid production which your body needs. So what you're doing is you're putting food in there. There's enough made to coat it. And then what does everybody do when they get done eating? They go lay back on the couch and start, flipping channels. And so the food moves up towards the esophagus instead of down through the gut. And it has just enough acid on it to start causing problems, but not enough to where it's breaking the food down. And then we won't even get into, food rotting in your gut and all the other stuff that's bad. And with that, so I'm off the statin, changed my nutrition habits and some lifestyle habits. I'm off the proton pump inhibitors. I'm not taking the little purple pill anymore, which I've helped so many clients come off because it's really it's a band-aid over a bullet hole
Right.
when they do this. And
Right.
then, you know, blood sugar started coming down. Testosterone, which, by the time I fired my first doc and was seeing my second, that was a little more functional minded, which was really low. We used to kid, I had the testosterone of an 11-year-old girl, and I was in my early 40s. And that started moving. It doesn't move quick. It's not like it went from 200 to 6, 7, 800 overnight, but it was up. It doubled, and incrementally as I ran blood work after that, it was going up a little bit more and a little bit more, and then over time you make the adjustments. But that was really my story, and that's what opened my eyes. So during this whole process, I got really excited about it, and I said, I need to help people. People need to hear that the letter MD doesn't equal GOD. And because people give blind, they give blind, um uh just themselves blindly to that, and they will follow anything they say. And when I was looking back at Harvard Medical School, one of the most prestigious medical schools in the world, at years ago when I looked at it, had about 6 weeks worth of nutrition in their 8 to 12 years plus of medical education. It's just not enough. you know the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, their biggest sponsors are big food, McDonald's, Kellogg's, Coca-Cola, things like that. It's the fox running around in the hen house a little bit. So the people that mentored me were registered dietitians that knew differently, or other people in the nutrition field. Found some great people around reading labs and learned how to do this. And I said, I have to get the word out. People need to know there are other ways that that they can get real with their health. Or now I hear your podcast, The Heal Deal. In my mind, that's what it's all about. Um, and the body is so amazing.
It
This
is.
this body did not just happen by chance, and it has the ability to heal if you provide it with the right nutrients, the right building blocks to allow the cells to do what they need to do. It's just amazing. So I went and it was funny. I went and got the ND program I went through was the naturopath that helped me. I was like, well, he's on to something, but it doesn't just stop there. You're a chiropractor. Your education just didn't stop. Stop with having that DC behind your name. You've done so much to learn and to go through your own healing journey, and that's where I've done, myself. So it's been an amazing journey, and it's one that my pain to purpose story is able to help other people like myself.
Yeah, I love the pain the purpose story. That's why I wanted to start with that, because a lot of the listeners don't really they want to know our stories. They think we're just, we were born doctors and we don't really understand what they go through. But what I love about your story, I was just taking notes, and some key things that really caught my attention is how young this started for you. And I was thinking of the people out there that I've helped, how, I think about your journey, and I think about the people out there that are on a similar journey, because your journey sounded like a lot like other people's, right? But the thing is, they're continuing with a new med that caused the side effect of the old med, and then they just continue on year after year. And now they're in their 40s and 50s and beyond, and they're still having health issues when they may have started in their mid 20s like you did. Like for me, I had issues as well, but um they were kind of like ruled off as normal. I took pain pills, but I was never on like an everyday statin at a young age. I just took stuff for pain or an occasional UTI or something. But it wasn't until like my 30s, mid 30s, where I started getting to the cause of my issues. So I like people to understand the journey and what it really takes. And maybe between your story and my story, people to understand, hey, you don't have to keep living like this, because you got to get to the root cause. You got to get the information. You got to get the labs. And some other key things you said, because you were talking about the allergies, the statins, the protein pump inhibitors, the proton pump inhibitor. I can't talk today. One of those things is those are lifestyle issues.
They
A lot of
are.
people are getting on meds for this. And if it was like caught and you were told, hey, you need enzymes, you need to stop eating this and that. But like I said, a lot of people aren't told that. And so a lot of our problems, we're dealing with the side effects of a lot of the meds that we were given maybe 5, 10, 20 years before that. So that's what I love about your story, because it fits so many people that we see every single day. So what I would like for you to share, like for example, when you started talking about cholesterol, I got excited because I love like understand, because it's like one thing about cholesterol, because what I want people to get. So again, we're just going with the flow with this conversation here. But when people don't understand the importance of cholesterol, I mean, they see that number, they go nuts. That's the first thing they want to know. And I believe that since you went through it, I want people to understand. I mean, you were saying, hey, we'll talk about that. Maybe we won't get into it, but I think it is important to share because it's part of your story and people need to hear it. Because I don't know if you remember or not, but I remember reading somewhere where there was a time when a 300 cholesterol was considered normal. And they've changed a lot of numbers, like with blood pressure and all kinds of things. But I guess what the direction I want our conversation to go into is what some of these things mean that we're told, because we're told, oh, you have acid reflux, oh, you got high cholesterol, and then we're given a pill. But I want people to understand what these things mean and what should be done first before we start going on this lifestyle of medications.
So I think taking a step back to understand a little bit behind the history of where it all came helps really tie in what's going on today, because we know the numbers that are on the medical reference ranges when you read labs are lower than they probably need to be. And so I take this story back, and I know, you discuss um, the importance of calories in and calories out, or maybe the lack of importance really that calories in, calories out plays in effect to weight loss. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think there is a foundation around calories in, calories out in weight loss. However, if things are broken in the cell, then the math equation doesn't work. And what I tell my clients is you're not a math equation, you're a biology experiment. There's a lot going on in here. But the reason why I bring calories in, calories out, and tie it to cholesterol is back in the 40s, there was a scientist, Ansel Keys, that studied calories in, calories out. And they did the Great Starvation Experiment at the University of Minnesota. And it was conscientious objectors to World War II that still wanted to serve their country that came in and were volunteered and said, I want to serve my country, but I don't believe in pulling a gun out and going overseas to kill people. And they said, okay, you can help with some of these experiments. And the basis for the experiment was how to rehabilitate the people in the concentration camps that were starving back to normal. And so he wanted to study starving. And there were a group of men that were brought in, and they were put on a very tightly controlled diet. They still had jobs and could go work and would walk places and such, but they were on a very tightly controlled diet. And the things that don't come out, that you don't hear spoken about when they talk about calories in, calories out, is hey, those men who were pretty fit. Remember, if you look at pictures of people today and back then, or even up through in the 70s, we were more active, we were eating differently, and you can see a lot even leaner. Back then, those guys looked pretty average, as in they were lean or thin, um, just normal looking Joes, right? And so they came in. The diet they put them on, I think the average calories was around 1540, 1546, somewhere in there. So 1,546 calories. Now, you hear the same way I hear when people talk about, I got to go on a diet, they're eating like 1,200 calories. These people, if you look and bring up pictures of the men, they call them the men that starve for science, right? They were wasting away. They were skin and bones at the end of, I don't think it was 6 months or 9 months. I have to look back again, but they were skin and bones. You could see their ribs. You could see, their elbows and knees and all the bony structures, in the back. And so they wasted away. Now, what people don't know is the things they were eating. They were eating carbs, they were eating mashed potatoes, but it wasn't mashed potatoes the way, it wasn't the box of Hungry Jack mashed potatoes that
Add
you
water.
reconstitute. Yeah. It was real food. It was, the
Mhm.
serving of chicken or beef or whatever it was. They had vegetables on their plate. They may have had a little bit of bread, but their meal wasn't made up of, a huge, loaf of bread. And then, obviously the way things have been made and refined over the years has changed dramatically. And I guess that would be for another conversation. But that's where it started. So Ansel Keys made his name on that and came up with all these things. But that's where calories in, calories out came from too. Well, years later, he was looking to bring his name back up again. And he's the one that had the era of McCarthy in the early 70s. Well, it went through the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s, where they came up with cholesterol is a bad thing. And so in my opinion, there's some faulty science in what people do with calories in, calories out nowadays. Likewise, we have faulty science in what's going on with cholesterol. And they actually came from the same man, right? So, and he was on the cover of Time and all these other things. Well, that's where they started regulating, fats and how we should put them in our body. And what they weren't looking at is what was happening with those, the oxidation of everything and the chemicals that were going, the toxins that were going into some of it when they were processing it. That wasn't what came about. They just looked at it. And then they came up with LDL, got the name bad cholesterol because it was taking cholesterol from the liver out to the body.
Yeah.
And HDL got the name good cholesterol because it was taking the cholesterol back to the liver for repurposing, reprocessing. And neither one of those molecules is cholesterol. They're just the bus that carries cholesterol all around the body. It's low density and high density lipoproteins. The key being protein, lipo meaning fat and protein. So it was proteins that carry the fat or the cholesterol around the body. And so that's where it started getting a bad name. And then you started seeing the obesity epidemic coming in through the late 70s and mostly into the 80s and 90s. And they started pulling fats, and the more fats they pulled out of the food, again, those fat-free sour creams and fat-free desserts and all that, you have to replace it, and you replace it with sugar and salt. And so now you're adding things into the mix that increases the oxidation and starts blowing, the cholesterol even higher. But the cholesterol that we're having, and someone got smart along the way and said, let's not just look at cholesterol, but let's look at the particle sizes because it's those small BB-shaped ones that get stuck in the arteries. But they're small BB size ones because of where the cholesterol is getting made in the body from. And it's all of those frankenfoods that people are eating. And so that's what really needs to be under control. That's what we want to look at because that's more of a sign of inflammation in the body and oxidative stress going on in the body. And really, that's where the root cause of dis-ease. I don't like using the disease. I like saying dis-ease because people aren't feeling good in there. And so that's a big problem. And that launched a whole um, you know, uh, column of pharmaceuticals in the pharmaceutical industry. Statin medications is one of the most highly prescribed medications out there. And those people want you to have cholesterol. Dyslipidemia is what they call it. They want you to have those cholesterol issues so more prescriptions can go out. And I mean, and we can go down that the whole big food and big pharma and how those are intertied as
Lots of
well.
rabbit holes we can go
It
down.
is,
Yeah,
but that's
it
it
goes
with
deep,
the
but
cholesterol.
yeah, yeah.
That's the big, that's the big deal around cholesterol. And so what we start seeing with people are issues at the cellular level because you're not getting cholesterol. And the other thing is people are looking at the back of packages going, this is high in cholesterol. Eggs, can't eat eggs, high in cholesterol. But our body will synthesize cholesterol it needs because without it, I mean, we all know what happens. If you take away all the cholesterol in the body, you take away life because it's cholesterol that's holding all those cells together. It's cholesterol that's the first, as I said earlier, the first step in all the hormones. And how many people do we see? How many women do you see out there that have hormone imbalances? How many guys are we talking about low T? And they're you see all the commercials and every corner, it's like 7-Eleven, every corner has a testosterone or a hormone replacement clinic, and that's just not the answer. But it starts with cholesterol. How many people are we seeing with vitamin D issues? And
Yeah,
there's
you need
there's a couple of ways
cholesterol
to
to
go down there, but
metabolize D.
cholesterol starts that. It's
Exactly.
it's almost insanity because we're trying to fix it with pills. And we don't need to fix it with pills. We need to fix it with nutrition and activity and lifestyle and do the right things. And we need to fix the nutrition because the food's gotten out of hand. And that's so that to me is the big issue with cholesterol.
Yeah, you put that together nicely because when you say cholesterol, I was like, yes, because it's like it protects the brain.
Yes.
It is a crucial in the immune system. I
Yes,
mean, cholesterol. I even have a video out there somewhere saying cholesterol is your friend.
it
And
is.
now with women that I'm dealing with, I get a lot of women with menopausal symptoms and even men with prostate cancer. I mean, all these hormonal problems. I want to see the cholesterol first, but they want to get pellets and shots and all this stuff. I'm like, no, let's look at the cholesterol. And they're not getting that. They're like, what's going on? And we jump in, oh, let's look at your cholesterol. Let's look at your inflammation. And they don't get that. So I'm just so happy that we're having this conversation, and it's different when it comes from someone else. Sometimes they hear it from me all the time. I'm like, see, but it is crucial. And I love that you shared that history aspect of it because even though your story is more the cholesterol story, I'm the insulin resistant diabetes. So but it all ties back into healthy cells, cellular membrane, lipid bilayer and all that. And then, like I said, like when we're talking about what I like to talk about is what diabetes is. And what that is poor glucose metabolism. And what people don't understand is like when people, and I'm like, listen, just continue to listen, y'all. I know this is kind of techie. We're cool nerds. We're in our little corners right now. We just but what y'all to understand, when you understand the history and the knowledge behind this, then what we do will make more sense to you. So when I was talking about glucose metabolism, that's what diabetes is. And what people don't realize is our body needs glucose. Everything that we eat and put in our body, the jobs of our metabolism is to convert everything we eat to glucose. And then glucose creates energy, calories, everything that we need to function. But what's happening is we're just getting so much unnecessary glucose. Like we're getting all these simple starches and sugars that the body doesn't need, but we can get our glucose from our fats. Fats turn to glucose, proteins turn to glucose. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. But we're eating so much non foods, we're stressing the body, we're destroying the membrane. Glucose levels are off the charts. The body has to package it somewhere. So that's the cascade. And that's where a lot of these diseases come from. So I just wanted to pop that
When
in.
when you even when you look at that, because I a lot of my clients historically have been glucose regulation issues, and in fact, that was one of the scare tactics that they use as part of my story. My dad has type 2. Both my grandfathers had type 2. They were like, you've got the genetics. And one of the things we like to say is, uh, genetics loads the gun, but it's the environment that pulls the trigger.
Right.
And so if the genes are there, that's okay, that's great. That's good to know, but you're not destined to your genes.
Exactly.
And one of the things I look at, so when I get really nerdy with people about this, because everybody understands, the cells, make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organ systems, and then you have the organism. But I start talking about mitochondrial health with a lot of people, and that's like my thing is everything about that mitochondria, because everybody has heard about it, at least in high school biology when they've heard about the powerhouse of the cell, but it does so much more. And it's energy production, apoptosis, which is pre-programmed cell death, your immune system, hormone production, heme synthesis, so your blood, oxygen sensing, cell signaling, all of that comes from that mitochondria. And the mitochondria doesn't have one membrane, but it has two. So when we're talking about needing that cholesterol and those fats, the mitochondria needs it as well. And the
Yeah, it has its own
mitochondria,
like membrane,
that's where
doesn't it?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Like mitochondria has its own membrane in
Yes.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah, it has an outer and an inner membrane,
Yeah.
and both are very important. Calcium regulation. How many people do we know with the porosis, penia, stem cell, all of that? It's so exciting. But when we talk about glucose coming into the cell, that's where it goes to make energy. But We also, when we were just talking about the fats and eating from all those frankenfoods and all those oxidized fats, those don't get used as well for energy. So the body needs something and it'll go to sugar. Now, here's the thing. If we're eating all of these processed fats, we're not getting, the good unsaturated and polyunsaturated and saturated fats. We're getting some weird things that the body may not be able to use to be able to bring into the cell or make a good strong cell membrane. But there are fats that we can't make inside of our body. So we have essential and non-essential fats. Same thing with amino acids, which make up proteins. You have essential and non-essential. So the essential ones are ones we have to get from our diet. But the difference with glucose is we don't have to get it from our diet because there's a process in the body called gluconeogenesis. Gluco meaning glucose, neo meaning new, and genesis meaning creation, right? So our body, like you said, can take fats and break them down. And typically that's not the route it goes. Typically it's more the amino acids that will go that way because the body can use good, healthy fats for energy because it is a process called beta oxidation, which it breaks down those fats to bring in the mitochondria to make a whole lot of energy. So with glucose, you make a good amount of energy, but with a fat, so I mean, you bring that in, they're big, you can make tons of energy. I always tell people we have about 1,800, maybe 2,000 calories, maybe 1,600. So about on average, 1,800 calories of stored glucose or glycogen. But even elite athletes have like 50, 60, 70,000 calories of stored fat. So we want to tap into that. So fat's so important, and our body will make it. Like I said, like we said earlier, if we're lowering cholesterol, our body's going to want to make that. We're not getting as much of it from our diet as what was once thought back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So they're so important. But yeah, glucose is I mean, we need it. We have energy, but we'll make it if we don't have it. It's those fats that if we're eating too much glucose and it's too high, we'll start converting it to fat. And then we're going to store that because fat's long-term storage. So it's a great point. I mean, we need those things. We got to bring them in. We want that machine we call a body running strong.
And when you think about it, you respect it so much. Like we have so much stuff going on in our bodies, and people want to deprive our bodies of the energy that we need to function. So I think, that goes back to calories. I mean, everybody worries about the calories, the calories, the calories, but we need to think, what does the energy my body need to function? And then when I say, and sometimes I have a joke, you're not fat, you have stored energy.
Right.
So you just need to tap into it. And that's
Yes.
what's really going on. And I had this epiphany about calories, and I can't even remember what it was, but it just seems like calorie just became a word that people just got so confused by it. But our body needs, when I think of calories, I think of the energy that our body needs. So if you're worried about calories in, calories out, you're not really focusing on the energy your body needs to function.
Right.
And I think you did touch on that. But if people understand our body needs food, our body needs calories, our body is creating thousands and thousands of functions every second when you're awake, when you're asleep. And if you're depriving your body of what it needs, your body's going to say, well, she doesn't need hair or she doesn't need teeth. So I'm
Right.
going to put my energy into keeping the heart pumping and the lungs. And then eventually that time wears out. So if people can understand that and be able to listen to their bodies and know what's going on and get the tests done, then we can heal. But a lot of people are just trying to figure it out. They're taking vitamin D and then they're not eating cholesterol. And then they're wondering, it's like they just don't understand. So I'm glad that you went into the detail that you did and just know what we go through as holistic doctors, what we have to understand and why it's important so we can help people out there. So I really appreciate you for really getting nerdy today. I love it.
I love it too. It's my passion, right?
But
So,
yeah, they need to know this. Yeah. I know we could go on and on and on,
right.
but I just really wanted to address the key things, understanding cholesterol, understanding calories, because those are the biggest things that people want to avoid. They want to avoid high cholesterol, they want low calories, and at the end of the day, to summarize everything we talked about, we're depriving our body of two of the things that it really needs. So our bodies need the correct calories, because another thing I like to say, that the quality of calories are different. So if you're eating a low calorie yogurt, you're getting chemicals, you're getting, like you said, sugars and salt, because fat has a lot of flavor. You were talking about the sour cream, because the fat has flavor. And then what they do is they remove the fat by some kind of chemical process, and then they add back in the sugar and salt so it'll taste like something. So that's really why they do it, and it makes it worse. Because when I was healing, I think my diet was about 75-80% fat when I was healing my glucose problem, my prediabetes. Yep.
Yeah, I've been down that road. I've seen so many clients down that road too. It's I mean, your brain, your nervous, the neurons, they're 65% fat. So you gotta have them, for all of that to work. What I like to say is I don't know anybody out there that has a statin deficiency. I surely didn't. It's good healthy fats. That's what was deficient, in my diet. That's why when I pulled out all the fat, my numbers went the wrong way. And we see that over and over again. And it's a cascading effect because it's again, cholesterol is that first step in so many different molecules that are made in the body. Vitamin D, your hormones, all
Insulin,
that testosterone and estrogen
thyroid
and
hormones,
progesterone.
all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, it's cortisol, the stress hormones that we talk about, and you went down there. So there's so many different areas. It's so important, and we don't want to look. I'm watching the world today, and we spent, you know, 20, 30, 40 years bastardizing fats. We don't really need to be doing that with carbohydrates either. But because because they're produced in nature in a way that they're edible for us. But the ones that are in a box or a bag on the middle of the grocery store that could be there for years are not what we're talking about when we say, good healthy fats or good healthy carbohydrates or good healthy proteins. We're talking about usually what's on the outer aisles, right? Typically, through the butcher counter where the meats are, in with the vegetables, the produce aisle. Those are great carbohydrates, that are there, and I encourage everybody to have that. Does that mean you can't have a piece of bread? It doesn't mean you can't have, but you shouldn't be eating the whole loaf, with dinner. That's the issue. And then, like I said, we could talk about all of the things that they've done, to the wheat and the flour and such, maybe at another time. But
I know, yeah,
um,
bring it back. But
that,
one
yeah,
thing I
it's. I
want
mean,
to
we
add,
could be here for
I
hours,
know,
right?
right? With them 3-hour series or episodes. But but since you brought it up, I want people to understand what's wrong with carbs now is it's been isolated. So what a lot of people are getting the starch, and that's pure sugar, which causes inflammation, and then it causes this cascade. But when we're talking about whole food carbs, you're still getting the fiber, the bran, and all the nutrients. So, that's what's happening. Yeah.
Even if you're looking at fruits, or they're okay, but you don't want that to be the whole of your diet, right? You need the variety. Potatoes, early on, it was like sweet potatoes are much healthier than white potatoes. And then one day I went and looked at the nutrient charts on them. They're not much different. you know, a white potato has some things at higher levels than the sweet potato and vice versa. So you can have that, but if you look at what the serving size, and I do a lot with my hands with clients, the serving size of potato is about the size of your fist. It's not these huge, giant modified potatoes that are like, they're 3 pounds. That's not a serving size of a potato. So you just have to watch the quantities you're eating, and then eat for your activity level as well. I remember when I moved to Texas, the big thing was like chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes and like a broccoli and cheese casserole type of thing. I'm like looking back on, it, I'm like, wow, that's a ton of food. But where was that? That was made for the people that were working out in the fields and on farms and on ranches and the ranch. They would go out all day, and so they were able to take those calories. And then the way the flour was made and all that back in the 1800s is much different than where it is now. So I've heard you mention quality before. I think quality is real important, more important to me than the math equation.
Yeah. Yeah, quality is important, and we have to respect our bodies, realize they're very complex machines, and we got to give our body what it needs. Because I was going to say it earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Because back to the cholesterol thing, what people need to understand is like I've seen more problems with because you remember talking about how the cholesterol is like the precursor to the majority of our hormones, and I've seen more problems with low cholesterol than I have with high cholesterol. So I mean, it's just so many nuggets that you shared today, and we can go on, and we just got to remember, I guess in conclusion, we could just say we have to heal at a cellular level. Our
Yes.
bodies create energy at a cellular level. So we have to treat ourselves. But by the time we get these external symptoms and we start to see it, our cellular problems started way before we actually start to experience the acid reflux, the poor digestive problems. I mean, we didn't even get into the cause of that. But the good news is I have a 100% success rate with healing those types of GI problems because those inhibitors cause other problems. And I think what they do is your food is still isn't breaking down, and instead of you feeling that heartburn, you're actually just suppressing it. But in the meantime, you just have all this undigested food sitting in your stomach, fermenting and gassing, and these inhibitors just keep you from noticing it. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, the list goes on because not only do I like to understand how the body works and symptoms, I like to understand how these meds act on these problems and share that with the client. They need to understand that when they understand how their blood pressure meds are working, what their cholesterol meds are doing, they need to understand that as well. Because I find that as us, I think we're pretty similar in how we approach. We love to say, okay, just take this supplement, take that, eat well, but they won't do it, right? But if you tell them what is going on in their body and why and what's in this food and what it's doing, and then they're like, "Oh my goodness," because we don't see it. So that's why I love that you went into this detail because I know this will help somebody understand. Hey, we take this seriously. We understand how the body works, and we use this physiology to help others. So thank you for
Oh,
that.
I really hope that
Yeah,
if one person listens to this and can change their life for the better, then I really
yeah,
feel like I've
yeah,
succeeded. So I hope a lot more than just one person do, but yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's so important to me to get this
yeah.
message out because it's almost like the movie The Matrix. When do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? And you take the blue pill and you can go back and pull the wool back over your eyes and live life, or you take that red pill and see some of the things that are really going on, behind uh, big food, big pharma, and making sure that you are taking responsibility for your own health. that it's my client's responsibility. I've been thanked so many times. Hey, look how you got me here and you did this, and I'm telling them, no, I haven't. You have, but I've been able to help point you the way, and you just followed that path. And so if other people listening to the Heal Deal can embrace some of this, and search you out, seek you out, or even someone else, just to help them get the right thing, though I think I would choose you over most anybody out there. So or if they want to reach out to us at Cooper Health Solutions, we love it too. It's just it's so important to get these words out, because we're being duped.
Yeah, absolutely right. We're being silenced and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, I appreciate for that. So I'm gonna have your information in the show notes. Make sure people can reach out to you. And for those who are listening, and hey, let me know what you think of this very detailed podcast. The thing about podcasts, you can rewind, you can listen, you can take notes, but let us know what you think. If you want us to go deeper in these topics, because Bruce and I, we like Dr. Bruce and I, we love talking
Bruce is
about
fun.
physiology. I mean, these are my friends. This is how we conversate with each other when we're not even on camera, because this is our element. But thank you for being here. And any
Yes.
other final comments about where they can find you? Anything you got going on in Texas? Anything you want to share before we officially close?
So I mean, you can always drop to our website at www.cooperhealthsolutions.com, and our contact form is on there. They can fill that out if they want to reach us. My wife and I, we're working together. She's like, the skin and hormone guru, and I come from the more the cholesterol, hormones, blood sugar regulation, digestive issues, and together, we just want to help everybody and let them know that there is another way,
Yeah,
that they are not, you are not your diagnosis.
right.
That is a label that's been put on you, and you don't, have to stay there. There's other ways to go about it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on. I loved our conversation.
This is awesome. And I want to get into the diagnosis part, but we'll share say that for
Oh,
next time.
we can
But we can
definitely go
close with that.
there.
You are not your diagnosis.
No.
Use this information to get to the root cause. That's what we'll say about that. We won't leave them hanging on that. But once again, thank you so much. And listeners, let me know what you think of this episode. Put your comments, share your comments, subscribe, follow, share this important information. And I know this was a long one. Watch it as many times as you need to. And if you have any questions, let me or Dr. Bruce know. So thank you for your attention. And until next time, go out there and achieve more freedom in your health and your life. Take care. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, seal the deal to heal by leaving a review, subscribing to the podcast, and sharing with a friend. Thanks again, and we'll continue the journey next week.